You're on.
Okay.
Nancy, you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Cambridge Open Studios. This is the first time we're doing Open Studios online. We're really excited. We have over 100 artists that are selling their work, which you can go to csart.com and purchase work. Our open studios began on October 3rd, and the sale will run through December 31st. We have 3 artists for you today, and I'm the moderator, Nancy Hart, or Nance Hart. We have E.J. Barnes, Elizabeth Menges, and Kitt White with 3 different types of work. It's going to be really exciting to see their slideshows and some of the work that they do. I'm going to be asking them some questions about their process. I'd like to thank Kristen, Jason Weeks, the staff at Cambridge Arts Council, Greg Cook, the people at CCTV, Susan and Sean, and especially csarts.com for regrouping and making this happen for us. As a Cambridge artist, we knew that we wouldn't be able to have people into our studios, and the fact that we've been able to pull this together is just incredible. And it's not only available for a weekend like usually it's Saturday and Sunday. This is up for almost 3 months. So we've gotten quite a bit of exposure. This is the first Zoom that we're doing, but we have many more coming. We have them on Saturdays and Tuesday afternoons. And you can go to the website, csart.com, and look them up. We'll be running them until the 12th of December. We are live today on Facebook, CCTV, and CS Arts, and I think that's it of where you can see this live. It's being recorded, so you can look back at all the Zooms that we're going to be running with hopefully just about all the artists that are showing work. Let's see if there's anything else here. So let's see. I think I'm ready to introduce our first artist, which is Elizabeth Menges. She works in mixed media and embroidery. So Elizabeth, if you would like to take over.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm just going to share my screen with some work. I feel like all the roles that I have that are under my name there are influencing what I make. So when I was in grad school at BU, I was exploring femininity. What does aging look like? What do we change? And in this case, this woman was nicknamed Grandma Jean, and she would change her makeup or put on a wig to fit society's expectations of beauty. And in my mind, she was actually much more beautiful when she didn't have the makeup or the wig on, and that would be her on the right. And that's a life-size painting. I took a picture of her in my mom's kitchen. I also explored the physical landscape of breast cancer survivors. I personally found changing from like a girl to a woman to be very difficult. And once you adjust to that, often having to adjust back to something that's typically less womanly, less feminine. If you go through the trauma of something like cancer, mastectomies, other surgeries, and it makes us question, if we lose our hair and our breasts and other things that are signifiers of femininity, are we still feminine? And what if we decide not to get reconstructive surgery? What does it mean if we're choosing not to conform to socially constructed beauty ideals? And I found 3 amazing women that were open to me drawing and painting them, and this is one of them. And this is her looking at her prosthesis, because sometimes she wore it, sometimes she didn't, and you can see the scar for her mastectomy on the left. The majority of my time is spent teaching. I teach at Cambridge Rindge and Latin High School in Cambridge. And I find that I get very attached to my students, and I was really excited one year because I found so many twins, and I'm a twin. So I photographed all the twins interacting with each other and drew them. And these are all graphite on wood. And the family has this one. I'm also interested in orthodoxy, Byzantine carving, icons, and all the authentic materials that go with that, the carving, the gold leaf, the egg tempera. And so I made some carvings that I kind of think of as icons. And in this case, these are dedicated to two of my best friends, Magdalena and Iliana. And this is about the size that they are, like a small plate. So I carved the wood, stained, and then used traditional materials for gesso, gold leaf, and egg tempera, which was one of the techniques I learned at Boston University with an awesome teacher, Richard Raiselis. It was also very important to me to explore my Cypriot heritage. My maternal grandfather was from Cyprus, from this little village you can see on the left. That's in Ora, in the Larnaca district of the Greek Cypriot section of Cyprus in the south. And this is one of his best friends from the same village, Anastasios Daniel. He went by Danny. So after my grandfather died, I was able to go to his village, actually got married there. And I was able to build a friendship with one of his old friends, Danny on the right. Marriage. When you live on your own for a while, it's pretty hard to adjust to it. And even though I love my husband dearly, it was really tough to adjust to cohabitating. How do you maintain your own personal identity and also accommodate the other person? So I did a series of hand paintings, about 2 feet by 3 feet, that explore the kind of like the push and pull that you can have in marriage through the physical vehicle of hands. Here's some more embroideries. These are pretty small, 3 inches. Just talking about common feelings that I think a lot of people have in relationships, but they just might not say them. So when you have conflicting needs that are at the same time, it can be frustrating. And then some of these are kind of little confessions. When I'm feeling hurt, I get defensive and kind of mean, but I really just want to hug, just to highlight the irony of how often we act out our feelings when what we want is something very different than what that behavior gets us. Pregnancy. Another first for me. I wanted to make fun of all the positive stereotypes about pregnancy because it's a traumatic event. Also amazing that our bodies can do that. So I did a little satirical checklist of all the symptoms people don't talk about that are associated with pregnancy. And then I did not check the one that people talk about, pregnancy glow. And then the common question for me, looking at pictures of, I think it was a cross section of a pregnant woman's body and seeing before pregnancy and during pregnancy and wondering where exactly are my intestines supposed to go. Postpartum depression and anxiety, unfortunately, that was a very real part of my, of motherhood for me. And I took these onesies that had been, soiled and turned them into embroideries to talk about all the really annoying comments you get when people that have forgotten how difficult being a new mom can be when they ask these things. They tell you to enjoy every moment. So my response is, no, I'm not enjoying every moment. And the other really annoying question, is she a good baby? Don't ask me if she's a good baby. In parenthood, this is my daughter, Maria Eleni, on the right, drawing. And although I'm not making big paintings like I was before, we do like to draw together. So the picture on the left is a small little snippet of the drawing that we were working on in the table on the right. And then I painted our hands working on it. And I really like seeing her openness and her creativity and her lack of self-consciousness when she makes. And I'm hoping that can work into my own work as well as how I encourage my students, my high school students. And then this is the last one. This is a very personal work in progress. I'm currently pregnant and it's a complicated one, and there are many, there's a low life expectancy for this particular little boy. So that's been very emotional for me to deal with. And my way of dealing with it is trying to get familiar with the images. I find that if I'm afraid of an image, whether it's, you know, something I don't like about myself that I'm drawing, or a situation that I'm afraid of, in this case, you know, a life-threatening disorder in a fetus, I draw it, and it's become kind of soothing. It's a way to spend time with my baby and to sit with the feeling of discomfort and sadness, which is something that I'm not used to doing. I often distract and avoid. So this idea of how do you befriend uncomfortable feelings, and how do you use your art to help you do that? And then that's my website and my Instagram, and that's it.
Thank you for sharing. Really, I identify with quite a bit of it. I am a mother. My kids are grown, but definitely, I mean, was a long time ago that I had little kids, but I totally sympathize with. It's a lot.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. I have one question. Maybe we have just 3 minutes. Would you address how COVID has impacted your work or not? Or are you able to work? Or
Yeah, I find COVID has, well, I spent more time with my daughter through that. So that means I have less of my own time. But when there's not a lockdown, I can have some time for myself and I can make a little bit. I often don't have the energy for it, at least right now. So even if I give myself like a few minutes to draw each day, it feels good. And I also have to let go of those expectations, just like I did of what it means to be a mom. Not doing things perfectly, not loving every moment is not doing whatever I think a real artist or a true artist does. And instead trying to readjust my idea of what creating can look like in my life right now.
I think that your experience is specifically and particularly female.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
yeah, you know, I think we have 3 women today talking, and I think it's really interesting because, and your work is very personal and very perceptive and really emotional. It's really, thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, our next artist. I just want to interject if you're just joined us. We have 14 people on. We are being live recorded on Facebook, CCTV, and you can also go to csartcambridge.com to look for the other Zooms that are going to be happening on Saturday and Tuesdays coming up until the 12th of December. This is Cambridge Open Studios. It's our first Zoom, and I'm the moderator, Nancy Hart, and we have 2 other artists for you to hear about today. So the next artist up is EJ, and she works with cartoons. Let me see, I have it down here. She's a cartoonist, and she has some really interesting work. Where we go, illustrator, cartoonist, and she works in many different mediums. She's working with desktop publishing, and she's missing live interaction as she usually does fairs where she sells her work. So EJ, would you like to go next?
Thank you. Thank you, Nance. I'm EJ Barnes. I'm a cartoonist. This is actually my 3rd career. I used to be a software engineer and I majored in chemistry. But I don't talk about that a lot. So I've been showing in Cambridge Open Studios for about 10 years now. And well, since 2010. And let me go. And I should have thought to put my link on the Open Studios website, but these are my websites. I have two. One is for my original art, and the other is for my self-publishing arm, as I self-publish as a comics creator. Okay. I'm going to start with some of the pieces that I've put in the Open Studios art marketplace. I've included pieces from a series I painted, a series of watercolors. I show art in, I go to a lot of comics conventions, but I also show in the art shows of some science fiction conventions, science fiction fantasy conventions, and they usually have an art show where people sell art, usually by silent auction. And I did a series of paintings where all of them are based on plants from science fiction, fantasy, or horror. And these are fake seed packet covers. And these are on the website. And this year, I know, Nancy, we're going to ask about how COVID has changed my practice. Well, I used to be an editorial cartoonist for the Greenfield Recorder from about 2005 to 2009. But since moving back to Cambridge, I haven't had a regular relationship with a newspaper. So I've been doing a lot less in the way of political cartoons, because the way political cartoons work is you get it to your publisher, and if they can't use it within a week, it's no longer timely. So in this case, a friend of mine approached me saying he had an idea for a political cartoon related to the COVID-19 social distancing and the efforts that that were being undermined by the current administration. And this cartoon got published in the Cambridge Chronicle. And this is one of the cartoons I have on the Open Studios marketplace. I included my 2020 political cartoons. This is another political cartoon I had up at first, but this has been accepted in a juried show at Piano Craft Gallery on Tremont Street. So that's over there. Now I had to take it out of the marketplace. The opening reception, well, the virtual opening reception for this show is in fact tonight. So I'm going from one Zoom event to another. And this is about police accountability. There were riot police that were covering up their badge numbers. I work a lot in comics. When I talk about cartoons, I'm usually talking about single panel cartoons. When I'm talking about a multi-panel narrative, which is read, one panel at a time, I usually refer to that as comics. And in my own terminology, some people vary with this. If it's a book-length comic book, I refer to it as a graphic novel. So I've worked on a lot of comics in different media. I've used the standard ink line art. I've worked with ink wash. I've worked with scratchboard. I recently finished a comic in colored pencil, but I'm working right now on a graphic novel, a historical graphic novel, which I'm doing in watercolor. And the page on the right here was accepted in a New England Watercolor Society show a couple of years ago. I self-publish some of my comics. Now, the short comics that I've done, some of them have appeared in anthologies. I'll get to those in a moment. But I have full-length comics, which I've self-published, which means basically I scanned and formatted them and sent a PDF to my printer, and I go down to my print shop and pick it up and stick them in my closet. So you can go to drownedtownpress.com in order to order my comics online. These are some of the anthologies I've been published in. I'm a member of the Boston Comics Roundtable, which is a group of comics creators that's been around since 2006. And so I've had work in Boston Comics Roundtable anthologies and anthologies from Ninth Art Press, which is a press belonging to one of the major members of the BCR. And usually at Open Studios, I'm selling these books in person and people will buy them for me. And unfortunately, since we don't have in-person events right now, I'm just going to direct you to their websites at the Boston Comics Roundtable and Ninth Art Press. A couple of years ago, the BCR put out their own playing card deck with a different card from every artist. We have actually a lot of artists affiliated with the BCR, and the piece I did was for the King of Hearts, which was based on the movie Roi de Coeur with Alan Bates. Another anthology series I've had work in is from Fulcrum Books. It's Colonial Comics Volumes 1 and 2. And in Volume 1, I researched, wrote, and illustrated in watercolor a story about Thomas Morton of Merrymount, which is now in Quincy. Also, at Open Studios, I typically sell prints of my cartoons. Some of them, most of them are gag cartoons. Some of them are political cartoons. But all of these prints, you can actually go to ejbarnes.com and buy the prints for me and I'll ship them. I've also got a range of holiday cards, which I have, since I don't have any December craft fairs lined up. And, you know, usually people like to buy their Christmas cards in November so they can start sending them as early in December as possible. I'm still in the process of upgrading my website so you can actually buy 10 packets of these card designs. So if you're interested in getting holiday cards from me, simply email me directly and I'll give you the specifics. Thanks.
So EJ, thank you so much for sharing your work. I'm sorry that you can't be in person with people, but you have quite a bit to offer. And I'm so glad you put all of the websites and places where people can still purchase. I hope that this generates some income for you.
Thank you.
Would you like to address the COVID situation? I know it looked like one of the cartoons was about Trump and you had a policeman with a mask. Congratulations also on the Piano Factory, Speak Up. I know a few people in that show. That slipped under the radar for me. I wish I had known about it. But it's great to be in a local show, an actual physical show. It's real right now. I mean, it adds to our lives. So do you see your work changing at all? Or do you have ideas about what it might mean? Because we're now heading into winter and COVID is still with us. And
I don't know yet what's going to happen. I think what I'm going to do this winter is focus on my long-term projects. I mean, as things were developing very fast this spring and summer, I was responding to things in the moment, and I really sort of need to focus on my large projects, my my graphic novel. There's a collection of comic stories I want to republish and add some material to, so I'm working on that.
Thank you so much, EJ.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nance.
Great. Okay, if you're just joining us, we are Cambridge Open Studios, the first Zoom ever to happen. This is the first collection of artists that are showing their work on slide format. We're the first ones out of the gate, but there's going to be plenty more Zooms coming up for you to see all the artists, and they're all going to be recorded, so you can go to csartcambridge.com and see all the people that are selling at Cambridge Open Studios until December 31st to see them talking about their work, and maybe you'll be interested once you see the artist to purchase some of the art and support us. So the third artist we have is Kitt White, and she works in pastels. And she was very helpful with me becoming the moderator. I just want to thank you so much for your patience. Kitt, take it away.
Okay, and not a problem. It was my pleasure. Someone had to teach me how to use all this stuff. I am so thrilled to be with these other artists here today. I'm honored because you guys are amazing. I don't know if we'll have a chance to discuss each other's work at the end, if we'll have time, but your stuff just blows me away. EJ, I told you that last night when we were looking at each other's, practicing how to use the Zoom. And Elizabeth, I think you were my kids' teacher a few years back. And Sydney, and if you remember her.
Yes. Oh, she's one of my favorites. Still is.
So I just messaged her and told her that I was looking at your work and that your work was just brilliant. So I'm looking forward to talking to you further, because she's all grown and gone. That's how I've done better with my art, is like get rid of them.
Fair. Well, you did a good job with her because she's awesome.
Yeah, well, your stuff is amazing. I mean, I'm just blown away. So let me, I hope I know how to advance slides on this. I haven't really used Keynote before, but I'm going to give it a whirl. I think I want to make this full screen, perhaps. Slide only. So that's me. I'm still fairly new at this in, a number of years. I grew up in an artistic family. And, so art supplies were always on hand. They were like our toys. Any rainy day we would be using art. I'm very grateful to my mother and my sister for that. And there's other artists in my family. And over the years, I've gone in and out of, taking lessons, and always enjoyed it tremendously. And in, during the last 5 years, I got into, I was recovering from a bad accident, and I got into taking some classes at MFA, our beautiful museum here in Boston, and started a pastel class. And I fell in love with it. I had normally been working in oils when I had taken classes, and I was a little goosey about pastels because the scratchiness of them used to bother me. I don't really like that scratchy sensation, but I've discovered soft pastels, so I work with soft pastels. Still, the first layer of them is still on that scratchy surface because I use this very sanded paper. Anyway, I'm hoping that I know how to advance the slides. That's my only problem here. Oh, I don't know how to open and make these move forward. This is what I was trying to practice before. I don't really know how these move forward. Oh, play. That's what I want. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Oops, I didn't want it to go that fast. So this is, I guess what I'd like to say about my work, besides the fact that I've found that I really enjoy working in pastels, is I found that I really love working with, I love doing still lifes. I've started to do some more portraits, things like that, and some cityscapes. But what my original subjects were still lifes, and particularly still lifes that featured glass and reflective surfaces. And I liked doing them because they challenged me. And I had had some experience in years past when I was taking an oils class in what was described to me that something called local color. And so the artists probably know what that is. Some people may not, but local color means that you paint exactly what you see. So instead of like I'm looking at Nancy's face, okay, I want to paint Nancy's face. I draw an oval and I fill it in pink. It's not. If you look at Nancy's face, it's not quite an oval. And there's nothing about a plain pink surface. There's all different pieces of color in her face. There's, you know, browns and whites and pinks and peaches and tans and beiges and all kinds, and even blues and greens. There's all kinds of colors in a person's face. So when I look at a piece like this, like the vases with the flowers in them, I don't distract myself by like, okay, it's glass, I have to make it look transparent. I just paint the pieces of color that I see that make up that vase. And it's more like a construction process. It's more like a sculpting with color, a construction with color. And it turns out, like, if I don't go with my own preconceived notions of what a vase looks like, and I just paint the pieces of color, it comes out looking transparent and looking three-dimensional. And I've really been happy with these, and I love being challenged. Oops, that I didn't want to have there. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Oh my. Now I'm revealing my, give me 1 second, I'm very sorry. Stop share, and I'm just gonna reload that. Escape, I'm gonna get rid of that thing that's right over the front of it. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to play. And I'm going to pause it so that I can, okay, now I will go back to share. Please forgive me. I'm good at Zoom, but not with Keynote. I don't know Keynote. All right, so here we go again. And I'm gonna hit play. And there's the big, okay. So now hopefully that won't happen again. So this is, I usually work from photographs. I don't trust myself to work from real objects because the changing light, I'm not good enough, you know, to be able to manage changing light, especially with an outdoor scene like this. So this is a tidal pool. My daughter and I took a trip to the Bahamas a couple of Christmases ago, which was lovely. And she took a lot of pictures. We found these abandoned, you know, these empty beaches. And this is very brittle, harsh, sharp, corally stone, like all limestone and corally bits. And so it's not very nice for walking on, but I really enjoy tidal pools. And this was a photo she took of a tidal pool. And then of course I had to fill in all the other stuff that surrounded the tidal pool. So that was a challenge. And yeah, so that was from the Bahamas. This is, again, still life. And, you know, it's not a feature of the piece, but there's the glass bowl, the platter that's holding those onions. And I guess I'm just I'm attracted to subjects that just please me. You know, if I see something that looks like it'll be fun and interesting to paint, that's what I do. That's what I pick. And so I have this old-fashioned chair and desk set that I found on the street of Cambridge. Cambridge is great for scavenging things. And it doesn't have a seat, as you can see. It did when I first got it, but it warped and peeled and came off. And so I just use it now as like a thing that's on my porch. And I like it. And I decided just to put this platter of onions on it. And there's also this little shelf behind it that is made out of sticks and branches. And, you know, again, just playing with capturing sort of a three-dimensional look and capturing textures and grains and colors and shades and shadows. And I find it very meditative and very enjoyable. Also, I get very frustrated sometimes because I want to make it happen faster than it's happening. I lose patience sometimes. Now, this is from a photo. I have a friend who lives in Australia. I have a lot of friends there because my ex is from Australia. And so we used to go there a lot. And I still have many friends there. And she and her sons took a trip to Switzerland. And up in the Alps, they came across this beautiful, or I guess they intentionally went, it's in a town called Sion, S-I-O-N. And it is a cathedral that's up there in the mountains, made all out of stone. And I like to think of this painting as the painting is that little tunnel hole in the middle. That's the painting. And everything else around it is what draws your attention to that hole, the tunnel. Which, I mean, as soon as I saw this photograph that she put up on Facebook, I said, can I please draw that? Or can I please paint that? So she sent it to me, and I've done a couple of other pieces off of that. But this just, and I talk about having to be patient, all these stones. And again, this is all pieces of color, just placing one piece of color after another, after another. And one bad habit I have is I tend to do a little mixing on the paper. I add color on top of color, which is risky because you can end up muddying your colors a lot. But the soft pastel and using this sanded paper allows a lot of layering. But I have to start being a little more disciplined and blending my colors on a separate piece of paper to see that I get the colors that I want. And this is an example of a portrait that I did of a friend of mine. She's just beautiful. And I always wanted to paint her because she has such a beautiful bone structure. And I just love her, to me, it was an adventure. It was an experience to see if I could capture her beauty and her mystery and her beautiful bones. And again, as you can see in this, if you look at her neck, the different colors that make up skin in the shadows. So I try not to be distracted by what I think skin looks like and paint what the skin actually looks like. And it's the same with her face. There's, different shadows and tones of different colors, a little bit of blue and gray and etc. So I've started to, and I've sold a few portraits. I've actually been commissioned to do some portraits and also some other pieces. My friend who went to the cathedral commissioned me to do a piece of the cathedral that had her sons in it. So I worked on that, but I'm not showing it because she bought it and I didn't have her permission to show it. So I didn't want to put it up. This was one of the early pieces I did when I was starting to really be attracted with glass. And so this is a glass wedding bowl. It's a glass bowl that has these ridges in it. So it's transparent, but the light is very fractured through it because of these ridges. And what I also put in this is you can see, the windows behind it, and they're sitting on this very reflective counter. It's a polished granite. And then these two little items, the blue little bowls in the front, those are ceramic bowls that my daughter made. And again, they just have some reflections. And, so I just like to rearrange these sort of sometimes the same objects on this piece of polished granite with the windows behind them and work on it and paint those. I didn't want to go any further with the flowers. I didn't trust myself to not ruin them. So they're a little, I just call them fluffy pink flowers. This was again, just a fun piece. I was visiting a friend in California and we were at a cafe and they had these beautiful plants in pottery in big pots on the ground. And so I just took pictures. And when I got home, I did some paintings, and this one attracted me because of the succulents and I wanted to try that. And also the big blue pot. I really liked that pot. So, the thing is, there's usually one or two things in a painting that attracts me. And then it's like this exercise in patience to try to fill in everything else around it. This was from the same cafe. This was just some plants that were along the border. And again, I wanted to try to get the texture of these leaves, which were very velvety and had this sort of velvety, bumpy texture. And I wanted to try to dig into that and see if I could make that come alive. And this was, again, the same objects, or some of the same objects and some extra other objects when I was, again, pursuing my love of painting glass. So these are 3 vases, and the little pink thing that some people are like, what's that? It's a ceramic crown that my daughter made in one of her early ceramic classes. And I just liked it, and I decided to put it in there for just contrast. And so as you can see, the background is a window, and outside the window, there are cars, and they reflect. And then there's transparency through the glass. And then there's the vases, which are both reflective and transparent. And then this polished surface that they're sitting on. So there's a lot happening in these. And, it takes a lot of patience sometimes. And, but I really enjoy working on these. I think this is my last one. This was my first kind of tackle of a cityscape. Some of you might recognize this. This is standing in the Whole Foods parking lot in Central Square. And it's looking towards the middle of Central Square. Some of you probably recognize that. And it was I stepped out of Whole Foods that night and there was just this blazing, beautiful sky. And I took some pictures and then I realized I want to try to paint that. So, at the bottom, there's like cars during rush hour and a bus and lots of reflections off of those cars. And then there's windows of the buildings and the houses. And as you work your way towards the back, there's more buildings that are sort of in the dark, and then this beautiful sky and the trees. And so again, a lot of detail. But I work what I try to work on is keeping everything balanced. I'm not so sure that's always something I work at, but maybe it happens more because I compose the photograph in a way that feels balanced to me, and then I can just paint it without thinking too much about that. So I think that's everything. That's it.
So I'd like to ask you, because we could see or determine the size of EJ's work and Elizabeth's, what are the sizes of your work?
Sure. So the smallest one would probably be, do you want me to show an individual one or just to describe them? Let me see if I can do that
Or
easily.
you could make spaces with your hands or just sort of.
Yeah. Well, let me, I might be able to just do this easily. If it gets complicated, I won't. So this one is one of the larger pieces. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. This is about 23 by 16, I think. That's the largest size I've worked on so far. And then, let's see, I'll go quickly back through a few. So that's, yeah, about 16 by 13. This one's about the same. And now it's framed and it's quite large. It's, with the frame, it's really quite large, but the piece itself is about 16 by 13. This is small. This is probably about 9 by 12-ish, 9 by 13. Same with that. This one's about 9 by 13 as well. That one, yeah, it's small. This one's about 11 by 14. I was starting to feel a need to move into larger canvases paper as I was working. This is large. This is about 16 by 23. This is 11 by 14-ish, I think. That's larger. That's actually behind me up there. You can see it framed. So that's about 16 by 23, I think, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And that's about 11 by 14.
So you primarily work on canvas or paper?
Paper, yeah. Did I get out okay? All right.
Do you have your favorite paper?
I like, well, I started out with just, your basic pad of pastel paper that I bought at the art store. And then, when I was taking classes, people told me about this wonderful, like you can paint on sort of velvety paper, which I haven't tried yet, but this sanded paper, it's literally like sandpaper, but it comes in a pack of, it's art paper, acid-free art paper. And, it feels gritty and sandy, and with the soft pastels, which I love, they're almost pasty. So when I put them, I can place a chunk of color down and then smear it with my fingers. Sometimes it's very tactile. My work lately hasn't been as tactile. Like some of the earlier ones, I was really just moving color with my fingers and spreading it and blending it with like sweeps of the side of my hand to make like flower stems. But like now I'm finding I'm more like placing pieces of color, and a little bit of blend here and there. But I'm sort of evolving into things being a little more sharply defined than blended on the paper itself.
Do you go right in, or do you do a drawing first in graphite?
I use a pencil and I just block out the pieces that are going to be on there. And then I always start at the top because it's really easy to smear it with your arm. So I have to restrain myself from doing something I might want to paint first and start with like the background, the big sky, and then start to work my way down.
So you work with chalk, not oil pastels,
correct?
No,
it's soft pastel. So there's different degrees. Like a regular pastel is it's not quite chalky. It's a little softer than that. There's a little bit less chalk in it. Chalk has chalk in it. It's like a material. Chalk is an actual material itself. And then pastel has a little bit less of that. And really what pastel has rather than chalk, at least if it's a good pastel, is a binder, which I can't tell you what it is, but it's some sort of a organic binder. And then the soft pastels and extra soft pastels are very dense, and there's less binder in them. So it's almost like these just pieces of pasty, chunky color that, you can put down and then smear. So that's, it's really nice to work with. So
is all this work that you showed us available for sale?
Yeah.
Great.
It's all on the website, and
awesome.
It's all on the Cambridge Open Studios website that you mentioned. Maybe you can plug it again. You can tell everyone where the website.
Yes.
I didn't want to put anything up that I'd sold or that was for someone that was commissioned.
So I'll just speak about that, but then we're going to, here's a question. We have a question right here. What are you working on now, and how does the virtual studios compare to the usual for you?
This is me. You're asking me. So what was the first question? I'm sorry.
What are you working on right now?
I'm working on, I took some photos off the web of just these beautiful French country homes and that are out in the middle of fields and meadows. And I send them out to Kinko's to ask them to blow them up. So I have like a big photo that I can kind of work off. So I have like a stone barn with big blue doors on it, and it's covered with grasses and plants and ivy and then a few other. So I'm going to make a series. Then the other one is the back of that building, which is just stone. And then there's like another shot that's forest that's sort of around it and behind it. So that's what I'm working on now.
So I also want to open this up to any participants that want to ask any of our wonderful artists a question about their work. Does any participant want to chime in?
I would. Well, and EJ, I don't want to slight you because I know I asked you questions before, but I'm going to ask Elizabeth first that I loved, I mean, you're like, as Nancy said, your work is so personal. And I loved that piece of the mastectomy and the prosthetic. And was that a pencil? Was that a pencil and paper?
Yeah, that was pencil.
And what are your other, I want to ask both of you, EJ and Elizabeth, what are the mediums you most generally work in, Elizabeth, and then also for EJ?
Well, I think it depends what I have access to, space and time wise.
Do you have a favorite?
So right now I'm going back to pencil.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had all the time and all the space in the world, I'd be doing big oil paintings.
That's what we have to talk about.
Yeah.
About being a mom.
Yep.
I'd be happy to. EJ, what are your comics? Do you use watercolors on those, or?
The graphic novel that I'm working on is going to be in watercolor.
Beautiful.
It's set in 1779 in Eastern Europe. But I've worked in scratchboard. I've worked in fact, the playing card, the King of Hearts playing card, is actually scratchboard with added watercolor, which is very hard to do because like scratchboard isn't very absorbent. So like you have to let it sit and dry a lot longer than you would with watercolor paper.
It's probably hard to control if it's just sitting there drying.
Yeah, no. I've worked a lot with one of the political cartoons I showed is ink line art with ink wash as in order to give it tone. But I realized actually just within the past the early months when I was doing a fair number of political cartoons, I realized, what am I doing sticking with a black and white aesthetic when so many political cartoons are now viewed on the web where color is something that it doesn't cost any more money to reproduce.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And what a door opening to freedom, right?
Yeah.
I remember when growing up, like how special the colored Sunday funnies were, as opposed to the black and whites that you'd see all week.
And the way they had to do them in the old days is they had to cut out pieces of this transparent, dots.
Yeah.
And, shoot separate magenta and yellow and cyan sheets.
Wow.
So EJ, we have a question for you. Where do you find inspiration for your comics and illustrations? I mean, obviously politics and science fiction.
Yeah, politics, science fiction. But I find in the last, maybe 5 years or so, a lot of my comics are historical. Actually longer than 5 years. The Thomas Morton piece was 2013. Well, it was published in 2014. Some of the anthology, BCR anthology pieces are history oriented. So I'm interested in a lot of things, and sometimes when there's a call for stories in an anthology that sounds interesting to me, I will pitch an idea. And usually if it's well edited, they'll tell you up front, you know, whether they're interested in you pursuing it further, so you don't like go to the trouble of, you know, writing and drawing 10 pages and then they say, nah.
We have a question for Kitt. How has your practice changed since the pandemic?
Oh, not in a positive way, unfortunately. I don't know what that's about, because I love, I mean, this is terrible to say because I know people are suffering terribly, but COVID is the way I wish the world was, like quiet and with enough space between people. And, you know, I don't like being in crowds, you know, I like to be at home, you know, I mean, what could, you know, it's like forced, like favorite environment. But interestingly enough, I wasn't working on a lot of stuff over the summer. And I think part of it was I had a whole bunch of like life stuff that, you know, like I had lost my job, which wasn't a bad thing really. But there was a whole lot of transitional things that seemed to distract me. Maybe COVID was distracting me too. Well, it wasn't COVID. I think it was the other stuff. I think it was the political world. I found it extraordinarily distressing. And, you know, up until maybe the last couple of days, like it's been an extraordinarily stressful experience and distress, you know, really, truly. I've been terrified. There's been times when I've been terrified. And I don't know if that really had much to do with it, but I think maybe it's almost like I felt like I had so much time and space to work that I got lazy, you know, but I'm starting to pick it up a little bit more now. And you know, like
Do you
I said,
think sorry, excuse me. Do you think the subject matter will change because of this? I mean, it's hard to know what all of us are going to create after this.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm not
it's
really,
been so catastrophic. There's
a
no
really
way we can ever not have been through this, and we're not even through it.
That's a good question. I mean, I tend to be so internal, like my life is so internal that I think I tend to just paint what I like, regardless of the external circumstances, you know, whatever just makes me feel happy.
Yeah,
So I'm not, but I don't know. Like you said, we don't know yet.
yeah. Elizabeth, thank you. Elizabeth, we have a question for you. What is it like to learn a new medium? And how do you choose which medium? It seems like you've worked with a couple things. Is there a way that you choose the subject matter needs to be in clay, or it needs to be embroidered, sewn, or
Oh, if I'm fascinated by a medium and I can find someone to teach me, I will. For carving, I tried to find a bunch of different people, and I ended up working with this really awesome guy named Ramiro he works with a Greek iconographer out in Newtonville. He does a lot of the carving that goes with the commissions that the church give them. And he's from Colombia, and he was trained there, and then now I think he's out west somewhere in California. But yeah, I was able to go to their studio and work with him, and that was really fun. That's my favorite way to learn something, is learn from somebody that does it really well, that I admire. But that's hard to find, especially in in a lot of older, more traditional methods.
is anyone taking a class online?
I don't want to look at the screen anymore than I already do.
Yeah, not right now.
No, EJ?
I dip into classes from time to time, but not right now.
So we have 6 minutes. Does anyone want to share anything? Let's see. So a question, okay, so for Elizabeth or for all of you, what are you looking forward to in your art practice coming up in the next, I mean, winter's upon us, right? So what is your, what are you thinking about this winter? Get through the winter. Are you working on a new project or taking a break, or you don't know? Anyone?
I don't know. If I just keep making, even if it's just a little bit, that's good enough for me.
Right.
I think that I think I just had a break, you know, over the summer. I was doing, you know, like I mentioned, I didn't do a lot of work, but I did a lot of swimming and got lots of sun, and you know, it was just a really nice change. But I'm looking forward to just picking up my painting now, you know, making new paintings, and that, you know, like, this is so nice for me to like meet other artists, and the Cambridge Arts Council has been amazing with like helping me to get plugged in to the art scene here in Cambridge, because I don't know where all this, where to start, but I think it's fantastic that we've had a chance to put our work out there, and I'm very grateful.
I think it's really exciting that this is online, because normally if you only had Saturday and Sunday, a couple hours, you'd go to the artist whose work you want to see. But now we can sit and look at everyone and hear them speak about and contact people we might want to work with or talk, right? I think.
Are these all going to be on on YouTube?
Yes, and they'll be recorded, and you can go and sit and watch them, you know, as they unfold, and then they'll be permanently on the website.
And will they be permanently on YouTube as well?
Yes.
Okay. And EJ, I'm sorry I bumped you from the question that was being asked. So.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I think I mentioned I want to get back to my large projects, and there's one that I've been slowly working on, because there are a couple of my self-published comics that have gone out of print, and I have uploaded as PDF some of my comics to an online store called itch.io. So you can actually buy PDFs of my comics there, and with the comics that have gone out of print, I'm preparing them as PDFs so I can upload them to itch.io.
So I just want to thank EJ, Kitt, and Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Nancy, could I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
I know one of the things that Elizabeth had brought up specifically, that she was, you know, about balancing, you know, like finding that balance. And I also wanted to say how much I loved that picture of the hands with the wedding ring, like, and what that was sharing, you know, what you were expressing with that. And I don't want to like single you out, or, you know, but I think that, it is really hard, you know, when you're, I think, and I don't mean this to sound condescending at all, but when you're younger and you have a young family, and, you know.
Thanks for calling me young. I don't always feel it.
I'm really old. So. But no, I mean, you know, you have a family, and, you know, I was joking with Nancy last night and saying, well, you know, the best way to do it is just kick everybody out, you know, get divorced, grow your kid up, and, you know, then you have all the time, but, you know. But I was just going to send you a chat, you know, and send you my number, because I would be so happy to talk to you more about that. It's
sure.
It's very challenging, you know, and I would love to, you know, I'd love to be in touch with all of you. So yeah. I'll send you that.
I would like to know more about self-publishing, EJ.
Yeah.
I think we should have a chat sometime, or contact, you know, I think other people would be interested in that, for maybe not producing comics or illustrations, but, you know, making little chapbooks of our work. Like little catalogs for when we have a show. We could like self-publish a little catalog that could be for sale, or we just give them away as gifts, or include them in proposals, something like that. So we're out of time. Thank you so much. We made it through the first Zoom. We were the first group out of the gate, and now there's going to be other artists that are going to come on. We can watch, and it's terrifying.
Great job, Nancy. Great job, Nancy. You rocked it.
Well, I had great support from not only the artists, but also from Kirsten, and thank you for everything. I mean,
and there is another group right after this?
No, next week.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I can just plug the next one. The next one is going to be Tuesday, November 17th, 12 to 1. So they will run concurrently 3 to 4 on Saturdays and 12 to 1 on Tuesdays. But you're going to have to go to the website, because there's a whole list of them. So I don't have time to list them. But thank you, everyone. And I hope that we all sell work. That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.